Welcome to the 8-Minute Devotion with Pastor Cameron Walcott. The 8-Minute Devotion is a daily message that exists to give you hope, encouragement, and life as we look together at the Word of God. And now, the 8-Minute Devotion.
Yo, 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 and welcome back to the 8-Minute Devotion on this Thursday morning. So glad that you can listen as we look into the Word of God together and as we look at the stories of Jesus as the healer. Of course, we're on this series called The Healer, and we're looking at how Jesus brings healing to his people. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So if he worked healing for his people when he was on earth 2,000 years ago, he is still working healing for his people today. And that's very important for us to recognize and for us to understand. This week, we're specifically looking at the word of Jesus and how he brings healing through the power of his word. We looked the last couple days at the story of the centurion and his servant. Today, we're going to be looking at the story of the 10 lepers and how Jesus healed them through his word. And of course, remembering if that's what Jesus did for them, he still brings healing to his people through the power of his word. So let's look into the story. It's Luke 17, and we're going to start by reading verse 12 of Luke 17. It says here, "And as he entered a village, he was met by 10 lepers, who stood at a distance and lifted up their voices, saying, 'Jesus, Master, have mercy on us.' When he saw them, he said to them, 'Go show yourselves to the priest.' And as they went, they were cleansed." So in this story that we just read, there were 10 lepers who heard that Jesus was passing by. When they heard it's Jesus and they saw it's Jesus, they started calling out, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us, heal us, do the miracle that we need." Jesus heard them. Jesus saw them. He looks at them and he says, "Go show yourselves to the priest." He just speaks a word over them. Go to the priest. As they go, as they listen to the word of God, as they respond in faith to the word of God, as we said, faith and the word of God work together. As they have faith and they respond to the word of Jesus, they are healed as they go. They are healed in response to the word of God. Their faith and the word of God working hand in hand, healing takes place right there. And of course, it's an amazing miracle because these 10 men, they had leprosy. Leprosy was one of the worst diseases of this day. Leprosy is a terrible disease, was a terrible disease. Still in parts of the world where it is today, terrible disease. It eats away at your skin. And of course, leprosy is highly contagious. So if a leper came in contact with a healthy person, there was a high chance that the healthy person would develop leprosy as well. So because of that, lepers had to stand at a distance away from a society. Lepers had to stand at a distance away from all healthy people. And there was such a social stigma placed on having leprosy. The law said that the lepers had to call out, "Unclean, unclean," lest anyone would come near them, just to keep people from coming near and catching that leprosy as well. Leprosy, it tore apart families. Basically, if you caught this disease, it doomed you to be a social pariah who would die a slow and painful death. Now, of course, this is being quite negative in the description, but you have to be, because leprosy was so terrible. It ruined your life, every aspect of your life. But when these 10 lepers, when they saw Jesus, a hope was placed in their heart. A faith was placed in their heart. And they cried out, "Have mercy on us, heal us, do something for us, Jesus." And Jesus saw them, he had compassion, and he spoke the word over their life. And when the word of God is spoken, that word of healing comes, the healing takes place. Jesus spoke the word of healing over his life. His word healed the leper, and his word will do the same for us. It'll bring healing. It will bring restoration into our lives. But continuing the story, there's actually a second half to this story. And let's read it now in Luke 17, verse 15 to 19. It's talking about these 10 lepers after they were healed. And it says, "Then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice. And he fell on his face at Jesus' feet, giving him thanks. Now he was a Samaritan. Then Jesus answered, 'Were not 10 cleansed? Where are the 9? Was no one found to return and give praise to God except this foreigner? And he said to him, rise and go your way. Your faith has made you well. You know, this one leper showed the proper response to healing. And that proper response is thanksgiving. Being thankful to God for what God has done. That is the proper response to receiving a miracle from God. It's to say, Lord, thank you. It's to come back full of thanksgiving, full of praise for what God has done in his mercy and in his power. And you know, as you read the story, you actually get the sense that Jesus was stunned that only one of the 10 came back. Jesus was shocked in his humanity that only one of the 10 came back to thank him. He says, where are the other 9? I healed 10. Why is only one coming back to thank me? And you know, actually, the one who came back to thank him was a Samaritan, was a foreigner, was not one of the covenant people of God. You know, the Samaritans, of course, were looked down on by the Jews because the Samaritans did not worship the true God. The Samaritans were a people of mixture. They had some Jewish blood, but they had mixed hundreds of years before with the people of the land in their worship and in their practices. So they did not worship God in a pure way. They were not the chosen people of God. They did not follow the covenant of God. But yet this one man who was a Samaritan, who was the outsider, he came back to say thank you. Those Jesus healed who were in the covenant people of God, the chosen people of God, they didn't come back to say thank you. And Jesus is not happy about this. And you see, it's a warning for those of us who go to church, those of us who listen to Christian podcasts, those of us who hear the word of God week after week. May we never be those who take God's blessings and healings and miracles for granted, and we don't give him the thanks he deserves. We don't give him the praise he deserves. We don't give him the glory he deserves. May we always keep our childlike sense of wonder, our childlike sense of faith, that when God gives us a miracle, when God gives us a breakthrough, we always return to him the glory and the honor that he deserves. May we never hold back from God that glory, that honor, that thanksgiving that he deserves. May we be like this one man. When he received his miracle, he came back, he thanked Jesus. And what did Jesus say to him? Rise and go your way. Your faith has made you well, or your faith has made you whole. You see, all 10 were healed, but this one received a blessing the other 9 did not. We don't know exactly what it means that Jesus made him whole. Is it a physical thing, or is Jesus speaking about a spiritual thing? We don't know exactly what the wholeness was, but he received a wholeness that the other 9 did not because of the gratitude he gave God for his healing. So when God does miracles in your life, when God delivers you, when God sets your feet on a solid rock, make sure you show him the gratitude he deserves. That brings wholeness. He is a healing God. His word heals us. We'll be back tomorrow on the 8-Minute Devotion.
Thank you for listening to the 8-Minute Devotion. We trust you've been encouraged and blessed today. Please subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or by visiting the8minutedevotion.podbean.com. For questions or comments, please email us at the8minutedevotion@gmail.com or visit our Facebook page. We would love to hear from you.